Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a different kind of project video here, and it has to do with that. This is my 2010 Chevy Equinox that I bought as a winter vehicle and then immediately fell into issues that these are kind of known for. Specifically, this car has a reputation for having timing issues with the variable valve timing, and that reputation is somewhat well deserved, but I think from my experience at least, that the repair process is overly generalized in a very expensive way. So I'm going to show you how you can DIY the first step fix for this motor and save a ton of money. And you can do it in your garage with like a 10mm socket and very little effort for half of it. The other half requires a little bit of dangerous stuff, but we'll talk through all of that. Here we go. All right, so this is our first generation Chevy Equinox, and we have owned as a family 4 of these vehicles and put a lot of miles on them. And we've really only ever dealt with the dreaded timing problem just once, and it was on this car. So I'm going to talk you through that a little bit. So here we are in the engine bay. Our particular version is a front-wheel drive V6 model. There's a 4-cylinder as well. Both of them have the same vulnerability, and it has to do with that. This VVT, variable valve timing. Essentially what's happening in this motor is based on how much load the engine is under, it can move the camshaft timing forward or back to try to place spark and ignition at the right spot in the cylinder to give you the best power and efficiency. The problem with that system is that it is completely driven by oil pressure. So there are something called VVT solenoids that are positioned on this side of the motor. On a 4-cylinder, there will be 2 of them. On a V6, there are 4, 2 in the back and 2 in the front. And oil pressure within those solenoids is kind of how it makes the shifts that it does within the camshaft. Now, next to each one of those solenoids is a sensor. The problem that these engines are known for is those solenoids fail. And the reason they fail is there are these little micro screens kind of throughout the device. And as your engine oil gets older and those impurities and things that the oil is meant to clean out of the engine are starting to kind of fill up in the liquid, it can get jammed in those screens. Now, this problem is largely minimized if you actually do oil changes on this engine every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. But Chevy, in their infinite wisdom, put a oil life computer in the system, and it pops up on the dash with a percentage of oil life remaining that's based on about a 10,000 mile oil change. If you do that and you run it out to 10,000 miles, you risk this system starting to fail. If you're changing your oil more regularly, you're probably not going to have much of an issue with it. So it's just a question of how this car has been maintained. Now, a lot of these are coming onto the used market. This is the same engine that you will find in this vehicle. I believe it's in the Cadillac SRX as well, and the GMC Terrain and a few other GM Chrysler product or GM Chevy products that are out there. So with this, the 2 things that you're going to need to be able to surface are the solenoids and the sensors. So we're gonna work our way in here. I'm gonna have to pull the cover off for the motor first. Then we're gonna pull off the air box and get this all out of the way and see what we're working with. To get the cover off, we're gonna pull the oil filler cap as well as this 1 10mm bolt. The rest of the cover is just held on by pressure clips. So once those 2 are removed, you'll be able to just pop the cover straight up and set it off to the side. All right, so cover is off, got that set over there. I did put this cap back on just to stop oil or stop anything from falling into the engine, because that wouldn't be good. So now we're gonna work our way over here to get access to the side. Now, when you're looking at the codes for this, the P0017, in my case, is dealing with bank 2 sensor 2. Bank 2 is the exhaust side of the motor. So if you look down here, you'll see this is our main exhaust coming off of the engine, so this half of the engine. So it's dealing with this set of camshafts right here, and that's going to be this set of sensors right under here. So in order to get to it, we're going to have to remove the air box. There's a couple pieces to this. You have 2 clips here at the top that have to get pulled off. These are pretty simple press and pull kind of things. So we'll pull those off, and then I'm going to pull the top of the airbox off. This airbox has another little breather hose here that just spins and comes off. So we'll take that off, and then there's a hose clamp back here, which interestingly is not tightened on my car. So from the last time, probably when they went in for the solenoids, they forgot to snug this back down. But we're gonna pull it off, we'll tighten it back up once we put things back together. So I'm gonna pull those plugs, pull that off, pull the screws for the top of the airbox, we'll pull this whole housing off, and then see if we have to take the bottom of the airbox as well. Okay, airbox and filter are removed. Filter's pretty nasty, so I'm gonna swap that out as well while this is all apart. Then we can take the lower piece of the airbag, or airbox off rather, to give us access to what we need. Looking at this, it looks like it's just sort of held by pressure against these. And then there are two, I believe, bolts, these two guys right here, that are holding the rest of it together. So we're gonna pull those two bolts and see if we can just pull this straight out of here. I don't see anything else that's attached to it. So we'll grab these guys and get those out of the way. Airbox cover came off with a couple T25s, there were 4 of them. Looking at it honestly, I don't think you would have had to take the airbox cover off. If that's loosened, you can just pull these 2 bolts and probably the entire assembly would come out as one. I'm feeling this out as I go, so it made sense to pull it. All right, airbox is removed. It was just those 2 10mm bolts, and then it just sort of sits on top of this, which is your intake hose, and there's a pressure plug that kind of pushes into here as well. So you just kind of grab the thing, go like that, and it'll pop out of there, and that'll give us access to what we're looking at here. So you can kind of see the sensors and the banks for the intake side. So we've got 2 sensors and a solenoid here. On the exhaust side, we have our 2 sensors and our solenoid as well. So orient myself here a little bit, but for the most part, these have these bolts that hold them in place, which is behind this mount, and that's going to be our problem here, is how do we get in there? So just to pause for one quick moment here in the video. When you get your sensors read or your error read, the P0017 is going to have 4 numbers after it. It's going to be like 1-1, 2-2, things like that. That has to do with the bank and the actual sensor that is failing, or the solenoid that's failing. So which position on the bank. So first number is the bank, second number is the sensor slash camshaft solenoid. So if you're dealing with a bank 1 problem, you don't have to do this next part. You can skip forward to past the part with the motor mount that we're about to deal with. If you're dealing with a bank 2, you are going to have to pull this motor mount. So I'll show you exactly how to do that. So if you're dealing with bank 1, everything after pulling the motor mount is exactly the same as far as pulling the sensors, pulling the solenoids, and getting those swapped. If you're dealing with bank 2, you have to go through the extra step, and that's where we get into that comfort zone problem of whether you feel comfortable supporting your motor from beneath and actually pulling a motor mount off of it, and all of the kind of danger that that brings to it. But if you're dealing with bank 1, you can get access to the solenoids and swap them, and the sensors and swap them without taking any of this next part off. You can just access them right now with a 10mm and you're done. All right, I've got the motor supported with my service jack from beneath. I've got a couple of blocks under it as well. So even if the jack fails, the engine's not going to be able to drop because we are going to be pulling this side motor mount. We'll be leaving the other side in place, but still, we really don't want this engine to pivot much at all. So I just have the slightest amount of pressure put on the engine to hold the weight of it, but without like lifting the car off the ground. So the second the spring started to move, I stopped. So what we're gonna do then is we're going to remove this mount. Now, this is getting into dangerous territory a little bit. So if any part of this is beyond what you're comfortable attempting from a DIY standpoint, please don't. Take your car to a shop, have them do this work for you if this makes you at all nervous. I'm just crazy enough to try this, so we're gonna do it. So these are 18mm, these bolts down here, and then these are gonna be 15 that hold this bracket together, and I believe these are 18s going into the block as well. So in order to get to what we have to get to, this brace has to come off. So you can see how the brace is connected here to the mount's connected to the frame. So we're gonna remove these very slowly, make sure the engine doesn't drop, right? So like as the threads are backing out, if the engine moves at all, then I'm gonna address my support structure here. But then once those are out, we'll get this guy out of the way, pull this whole bracket out, and then we can remove the bolts from the side of the block. All right, so those bolts are removed. That'll allow this to pull out. And as you can see, my engine's being completely supported now by the blocks underneath it. So our next deal is going to be to get those 3 bolts that go into the block off so that we can take that main support out, which will grant us access to the VVT solenoid behind it. All right, so here's that support bracket removed. It's just held on by 3 of these big 18mm bolts. So you're gonna pull those as well. The only tricky one is the one in the back corner. You do have to have kind of a braking bar to get these started, and then we'll get them torqued back down the way they're supposed to be. But getting in there is a little bit tight with the wheel well here. So I used a combination of a small braking bar and a little wrench on it just to give me the leverage I needed. And then once I got it just started, a standard ratchet pulled them the rest of the way out. So I'm gonna set these and the bolts over there with all my other parts. I, as a habit, just keep all my parts and fasteners together. So those are the 3 motor screws for that mount and the 2 top brackets. I'll put this support bracket over on the side with its 3 bolts as well, just to keep everything organized, and then my reinstall is just the opposite of my uninstall. Now that that support is removed, we can see with much better access what we're looking at for the exhaust side of the 3.0 liter VVT. So we have a sensor here and a sensor here for the 2 camshafts, and you have your 2 solenoids here and here. For me, what I'm gonna do, I bought replacement solenoids for both. I'm not sure which one's bad. I'm just gonna do them both since I'm in here, because it is kind of a pain in the butt to take all of this stuff out. This is also why it's so expensive to do things like a water pump on this engine or any actual timing work, because timing cover and everything requires that you actually pretty much pull the motor out of the car so that you can get access in here, because everything's pretty tight the way they've got it built. So while we're open, I'm gonna do these. Like I said, we'll do both solenoids and both sensors. These are pretty standard clips, so you just press on this and the plug will come right off. Same with these. These are a little bit trickier usually. 2 methods for this. You can kind of get a screwdriver in between to put pressure on it. Just be careful because some of this plastic will be getting kind of brittle now. So I'll get these worked off, and then for the sensors and the solenoids, it's just a single bolt that holds them in place. And these, it's a little smaller than 10mm. I'll look and see what this is, and I'll let you know when I come back. But we're gonna get these swapped out, pull both the sensors and both the solenoids, drop new ones in, and then we'll get ready to button it back up. And these are, of course, 10mm. One comment about this, all of this is oil fed, so you're likely gonna have oil on the back of these sensors and on your solenoids. You have all your belts and stuff here. So I would take a rag and just drape it over this to catch anything that dribbles out when you pull these out. All right, so for replacing these, it is a 10mm, as I said, and you just kind of pull them out one at a time and swap them. So the sensors are pretty short. There'll be a little bit of kind of suction against the O-ring here. So just take the plug off and just pop them loose, pull it out, throw the new one in, screw it back in place. The solenoids are a bit longer. So on the solenoid, you have a bit more length that you're working with. So you're gonna pull this entire piece out from the car. Your kit for the replacement should include a solenoid, a new seal, and a new bolt for you to use as well. All right, with the solenoids, there's a seal right in here, that black piece of rubber that you need to kind of pop out as well, and they give you a new one to replace it with, just to make sure everything stays tight. Also, the solenoids have a bit of a suction, more so than the sensor did, so you should be able to kind of get just a screwdriver in there and just give it a slight amount of pressure and it'll pop right out. And then you can just pull it straight back, and then, like I said, kind of peel that seal out as well. All right, we're down to the last one. So the belt gets in the way a little bit on this one. You have to use a box wrench to get that 10mm bolt down at the bottom out of here. And then once you do, you have to kind of get this to pop loose, just like the other one. And then you can sort of rotate while it's in there to allow the bracket to clear the belt. And then inserting it's going to be the opposite. So you just sort of run it in rotated, and they're going to give resistance about right there. And it's the inner seal contacting. You just have to sort of push past that. So we're just going to give it a little nudge, and it'll kind of snap into place or pop into place. And then you can rotate it back down so that your bracket lines up. Feed your bolt in, tighten everything up, and then put your plugs back on. Pretty simple to do, actually, once you get all this stuff off. Okay, our new solenoids and new sensors are installed. Everything's plugged back in, everything's snugged up. So now we're gonna put the bracket back on the motor, then we'll put the mount back on the frame, snug everything up, and then put my intake back on. And then we can take this thing for a run and see how she drives. All right, reassembly on this is going to be the exact opposite of what we did for disassembly. So it's reattaching the mount bracket to the motor, attaching that back into the frame, and then putting back together the air intake and all of that piece. Now, I'm a little not so happy about this part. I'm doing some more research here, but I did not find good information anywhere about what the proper torque specs were for that motor mount and bracket. The best that I found was 69 torque, or 69 foot-pounds rather, on the bolts that went into the frame, and then 49 on the bolts that connected the frame to the motor bracket. What I didn't find was torque specs on the bolts that went from the motor bracket into the motor itself. So I'm not going to tell you what those should be because I'm not confident in the values that I used. So that's something I'm going to have to, say do your own research on, unfortunately. If I do find more definitive answers to that, I will update the description of this video. So check there in the text and see if we've come to a better answer than that. That's the best I have for right now. All right, so by way of check-in, it was about a month and a half and roughly 1,000 miles, 1,200 miles ago that I did all of those repairs to this vehicle. And since then, I've had no check engine light, no issue, no anything. Now, I did take this at one point to a shop prior to doing that work and had the VVT solenoids swapped. The shop did that work. I spent $500 having that done, and it had no impact. And they're the ones who then advised me that I needed to have the entire engine torn apart and the timing rebuilt for a tune of $7,000. I talked to that same shop about whether it would be worth replacing the sensors as well. They said no. I replaced the sensors and the problem's gone. So the tech bulletins on this car seem to say, replace the solenoids. If the solenoid fix doesn't do it, then do the whole timing kit, which includes the sensors and a bunch of other things for a massive amount of money. I don't know why they don't do the sensors at the same time as the solenoids. They're right there and they're super cheap from a part standpoint. I don't know what the motivation is there, but if you're dealing with this problem, with the P0017 error on this motor, on the 4-cylinder or the V6 of these Gen 2 Equinoxes, Terrains, Cadillac SRXs, Chevy Impalas, Chevy Cruzes, any of these vehicles that are using this motor, I'd recommend trying this. I mean, do the sensors along with the solenoids, see if that clears it. If not, you're going to be out an extra $100, but it might solve it. It might save you a whole ton of money. So this being the end of a DIY dad video, I of course owe you a dad joke. So what word in the English language, in its common spelling, includes all 26 letters? Alphabet. Right, remember, with any DIY project, most important step is just to do it. Take care, stay safe, like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Bye.